Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? How do you really understand your innate abilities and what, call it God gifted, whatever you're born with, that gives you the ability to create success, power, longevity in the life that you want to have?
About 31 years ago, I was the partner in what turned out to be a real successful advertising agency. I had three brilliant creative partners, and I happened upon an assessment. This was literally in 1988. And I happened upon an assessment that was created by this genius at General Electric named Johnson O'Connor. And that assessment was designed to help you understand how you're hardwired, what you're uncommonly good at. It's not IQ, it's not skills. It's not interest. It's not any of those factors. He created a series of assessments, 19 of them, that you can take. When he was doing it, it was 7 hours, and you can take these what are called work samples, and those 19 aptitudes match up to all the occupations and professions on the planet. Again, he's been doing this, or his organization has been doing this for 99 years. So one of our superstars at Hutcheson, my ad agency at the time, had been through this, and she had gone to a good school, and she went off to an Ivy League school and ended up at our place. And she was quite extraordinary. And we were at a cookout, July 4th that year. And I said, "How did you make your way? How did you figure yourself out?" And she told me about this assessment and how seminal it was to her. So, about 2 weeks later, they happened to have an office. They've got 11 offices around the country, and they happened to have an office in Atlanta. And I took this assessment, and it was a eye opener because it literally told me how I'm hardwired. And what I mean by that is I was then in my early 40s. And when I was going through school, I was a good student. And my dad wanted me to look at dental school because it was shorter than medical school. Well, I got into my freshman year of college and realized that I didn't have the slightest idea how chemistry works. In high school, you can memorize the formula. In college, you got to understand it. So anyway, I ended up dropping chemistry, picking up philosophy and German, and making a 4.0, and I would have flunked out. So I ended up going, like I told you, I go back, Emory, got out of the army, and became an entrepreneur. But I found out 25 years later, back to the innate abilities, that my abilities in science are 10th percentile. They measure those. So you know if you have the abilities or aptitudes to be a professional based on how your mind works. And what I did find out is that I have high idea productivity, and I'm a high specialist, and there's several other abilities that make me an inventor and a writer and a creative guy. And I ended up, by the grace of the Great Spirit, following those instinctively, getting into publishing right out of school with no experience and doing well in that, and then getting into advertising and doing well in that. But I could have found that out at 14, and anybody can find that out at 14. Imagine now, right now, in this complex world where, people are trying to get into the best colleges or technical schools, and, looking to follow their interest, but they don't know if they have the innate capacity to do that. It doesn't, if you don't, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means, my favorite metaphor is this genius named Michael Jordan, who was a genius, and then he went off to try to play baseball. Do you remember that story?
I do.
Well, how was he at baseball?
Not that great.
He was horrible, and he's a genius, so he couldn't hit a curveball. So, in fact, he was on the cover, much to his chagrin, of Sports Illustrated with some headline that said, "Come on, Michael." Well, now he went back to the NBA, won several more NBA championships. Now he's a billionaire and a great businessman. But you don't want to be Michael Jordan playing baseball. You want to be Michael Jordan in the flow playing basketball. And so this abilities assessment is the starting point for that. A guy that I was in the army with for a few years was a brilliant psychologist. We added other factors to that equation. In fact, I should pull this up in here. But we studied the brilliant women and men scientists over the decades. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if that shows up. But there are other factors that play into this whole person model. So you've got your abilities that I just shared, but then what you learn is your skills, your interests, your passions you care about, your personal style, your values, your goals, what age you are, and all of that comes into this equation of what makes you you, and allows you to develop a blueprint at whatever age, 14 or 84, where you can actually base your decisions from the inside out. That's why I call it the who instead of the outside in. So that's the executive summary. We've done this for tens of thousands of people, and the assessment has been used over 1 million people. And the empirical results are, if you do these things, we did one study with Fortune 500 companies, and if you do these things, your your satisfaction, your performance, the team's performance, your being in the flow increase exponentially.
I love that. And I've had the benefit of spending time and working for Fortune 500 and even Fortune 10 companies, of being exposed to information like, Franklin Covey and Sigma 6 and things of that nature, right? What I'm always interested though more so is because I know that a lot of people listening to this show, they've come through this place, which is a place where I used to be, of not being clear and concise and understanding on who they are. And then they go and they take one of these assessments, they get some ideas, maybe they even do the corporate training, but they still feel trapped, or even worse, they feel scared. They feel the fear of like owning that. So, Don, what does one do to like really step into taking ownership of this newfound knowledge?
Well, it's probably one of the great questions of our existence, right? I mean, I think and you know this well. I mean, you have to be you have to be in your own space. The power of now, as Eckhart Tolle talks about it. Instead of being short-term oriented and success oriented and out of directed, you just have to come to peace with yourself. And there are many modalities for that. There's no one perfect modality. Everything from just being quiet, meditation, yoga, all kinds of different, whatever your spirituality is, it doesn't matter. But until you can be with your own self and trust your own instincts, which, as you said earlier in the show, people are so caught in the matrix and are looking outside themselves. It's impossible to trust your instincts. And until you do whatever programs you do, whatever introspection, whatever tools you can learn, but then get out there and experience with your innate abilities and your skills and your values. Get experience, do informational interviews, do internships, and find out when you're in the basketball flow instead of the baseball flow, as Michael Jordan found out. And it's a lifetime journey. I mean, I don't care if you're making minimum wage or a billionaire. I mean, why do you think Jeff Bezos went into space? I don't know, but he's still looking, right? I mean, he's done pretty well financially. He's got a great company, but he's still exploring. And so, I think it's one of the seminal tasks that we have while we live on this plane of existence.